We've all seen the way students get characterized today. Passive, disinterested, and struggling to engage in their education. And this raises an important question. How do we get kids motivated to engage in our class so that we can establish a culture of learning? In this video, we're going to cover 4 tools to establish a culture of learning, and we're going to divide those tools into 2 categories: disciplines and desires. Practices of discipline are used to push students out of their comfort zone to achieve their best, and practices of desire are used to entice kids to engage in your classroom activities. Now, when it comes to practices of discipline, it's important to know discipline functions like a gas pedal. The right amount of pressure is essential for any given situation. Now, we all have those moments or know those teachers that get caught in the mindset of a drill sergeant. The pedal is always pinned. It's the I say, you do mentality, and that's the way this classroom works. And you might be thinking, with enough pressure from a drill sergeant, well, don't those soldiers obey? And isn't that good? Well, yes, that's true, and it would be a good thing if we weren't forgetting one little detail. The soldiers who obey those orders are the only ones left after every other potential naysayer, slow learner, or weak soldier has been weeded out of boot camp. In fact, that's one of the primary roles of a drill sergeant, is to get people out. In the classroom, there are times when it's important to put the pedal to the metal, but those moments are few and far in between. Used at the wrong moment, you can lose a student's respect for good. So too with too little discipline. If you never demand anything of your students or push them to achieve more, they'll begin to check out, knowing that they can tune back in at the end of the term and be just fine doing as little effort as possible. And in this lies an important principle. Too much discipline and the students will resent you. Too little and they'll disregard you. But the right amount and students will respect you. The first practice of discipline is to establish a classroom where students carry the cognitive load. Watch this iconic scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and ask yourself, who is carrying the cognitive load in this scene?
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to...
Now, while this example takes the idea of a teacher carrying the cognitive load to the far extreme, we've all experienced teachers who get caught in this type of routine. Asking questions with no intention of having a student answer them, or doing the work for the kids or the thinking for them. When teachers do this, they fail to see that they undermine their own work in countless ways. The scene captures it perfectly. Answering your own questions encourages students to stop investing mental energy as they learn to anticipate that their input really isn't required for the class. Students will come to view the class as a disrespect to them. Now, here's a challenge. To avoid the pitfall of Ben Stein, teachers need to be intentional about the questions they ask and the activities they assign, and then be okay with letting kids struggle with them, even when it's uncomfortable. Like a coach that refuses to allow their players to settle because they recognize that the struggle is productive. Now, you might be thinking, I get that students are to carry the cognitive load, but how do I do this in the day-to-day? And there are so many resources out there, but a wonderful place to start is Doug Lemov's book, Teach Like a Champion. In the book, Lemov highlights a number of disciplines that help shift the cognitive load from the teacher to the student. He's got all these catchphrases for them like right is right, where he coaches teachers to hold out for complete, correct answers and not allow the students to answer in vagaries. He reminds teachers that format matters as he brings to attention that it's important to do the little things right. He challenges teachers to strive for 100% compliance to teacher instructions, and he coaches you how to carry out the famous no opt-out, which provides students with a menu of options to pull from if they don't know an answer to a question, but it doesn't allow them to disengage completely or avoid answering. One of the easiest ways to start doing this is simply by calling students at random to encourage a culture of readiness and combining that with no opting out. It's a simple way to drastically change the culture of your classroom. Now, contrast the earlier scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off with Mr. Ketting and the way he approaches the cognitive load in The Dead Poet Society.
Now, you don't get away that easy. Picture of Uncle Walt up there. What does he remind you of? Don't think. Answer. Go on.
A madman.
What kind of madman? Well, think about it. Just answer again.
A crazy madman.
Oh, you can do better than that. Free up your mind. Use your imagination. Say the first thing that pops into your head, even if it's total gibberish. Go on. Go on.
A sweaty-toothed madman.
Good God, boy. There's a poet in you after all. There. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close them. Now, describe what you see.
I close my eyes.
Yes?
And this image floats beside me.
Sweaty-toothed madman.
A sweaty-toothed madman with a stare that pounds my brain.
Oh, that's excellent. Now, give him action. Make him do something.
His hands reach out and choke me.
That's it. Wonderful, wonderful.
And all the time he's mumbling.
What's he mumbling?
Mumbling truth.
Yeah.
Truth like a blanket that always leaves your feet cold.
Forget them. Stay with the blanket. Tell me about that blanket.
You push it, stretch it, it'll never be enough. You kick at it, beat it, it'll never cover any of us. And from the moment we enter crying to the moment we leave dying, it'll just cover your face as you wail and cry and scream. Now, while I would never encourage a teacher to grab a student's face, you can see the way that Mr. Ketting puts the cognitive load on the student. He calls at random and refuses to let the student opt out of answering, and then pushes the student to answer the questions on deeper and deeper levels. Now, before I move on to practices of desire, I want to add one more detail about practices of discipline. If you wait till the middle of the year to begin implementing these, you've just made your work twice as hard. Implement disciplines at the beginning of the year when students are aiming to please, and before the honeymoon wears off. This period usually lasts about 3 weeks, which is just enough time to establish the practice as routines and procedures in your classroom. Now, for the first practice of desire, first and foremost, project passion. Think back on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The movie highlights just how boring school can be. Contrast that social studies lesson to Ron Clark's social studies lesson.
It's the president's right, all right, okay.
Now, you may not ever be a rapper or a dancer, but what every teacher can do is find a way to share your passion for the subject. And this can be shown in a way that's unique to you. But be sure to project it to your kids. Emotions are contagious. When you project positivity, the children can catch it. Not every kid is going to have a natural connection with your curriculum, but they can catch it through passion. We've all experienced an unexpected appreciation for something when we've rubbed shoulders with someone else's passions. Next, climb quickly towards creation. One of the best ways to draw students into a culture of learning is to create opportunities to learn through creation. In any educational taxonomy you look at, you're always going to find creation at the top, and this is because creation is the highest level of learning. And the best part of it is kids love to create. The #1 most played and top grossing video game of all time is not a game with incredible graphics. No, it's Minecraft, which is probably the worst graphics you'll ever see. However, the creators were able to tap into kids' desires to create, and kids are creating entire worlds using the game. In addition, YouTube has come to dwarf the TV companies in the number of daily watchers, as it's given those who once could only watch the ability to create. Have you ever seen the way kids flock to CTE, ceramics, arts, and culinary classes? In the visual and performing arts, kids learn through creation. And while those courses lend themselves to creation, the challenge for the more academically inclined subjects is to find ways for students to rigorously create. And if you can find a way for students to do this, a teacher will begin creating an amazing culture of learning. Now, this video only scratches the surface of disciplines and desires. Teachers can spend their entire careers honing the practices and learning new ones for their students. But the good news is this: just implementing a few of these practices can go incredible distances in establishing a strong culture of learning in your classroom.